I'm Harrison Graham. Welcome into Bears Now. On today's show, with the arrival of new defensive coordinator Eric Washington, I figured we could take a look at some defensive free agent targets. We did some offensive free agent targets once the Bears hired Shane Waldron. Go subscribe and check out that video. We're going to flip to the other side of the ball here with Eric Washington as the DC. Now, you look at Washington's background a little bit, at least relevant stuff. He coached under Lovie Smith in Chicago from 2008 to 2010. Primarily a defensive line background, which I love. That's what I preferred in this DC hire, because I figured Flus would keep calling the plays, and he will. Get someone with a D-line background. That's the position group that needs to improve the most, especially after Montez Sweat. He does have defensive coordinator experience. He was the DC in Carolina for a couple years, and he's been coaching since 1997 and been in the NFL since 2008. So he has a lot of experience, primarily as a D-line guy, which I'm a very big fan of based on what the Bears defense needs. And yeah, like I said, they need the most help, right? Like Montez Sweat made a big difference, and other guys got better because of it, but you need another step out of Javon Dexter. You need DeMarcus Walker to be a little bit more consistent. Zach Pickens to step up. So I'm excited for Washington to be in here, but I'm also excited for some guys you could bring in for Washington to help develop and coach as well. Now, February is almost here, and I am starting a February subscribe battle with the Cowboys Report, two of our biggest NFC channels and just channels overall here at Chat Sports. So, Tom Downey, I'm challenging you. Most subscribers in February. I haven't actually told him this yet, so we'll come up with some kind of competition. The winner gets blank, or the loser has to do blank. Let's make it happen. Let's not lose to the Cowboys Report and Tom Downey. If you want daily content, hit that sub button. All right, let's start with the edge position, because I do think that is the biggest need on the defense right now. Brian Burns. And listen, the first two guys we're going to talk about here are, prime tag candidates, but I think there's an interesting connection here. Washington Brian Burns was on that Carolina Panthers staff when Burns got drafted in 2019, and an old quote from Burns has surfaced from that year, from when Washington was the DC and prior to that the D-line coach in Carolina. Here's what he had to say about Eric Washington. He said, "He gets to know you before he coaches you, because he wants to know how hard he can push you. You got to know me, and I think that's why our bond is so tight, and that's why I'm able to learn." And you look at his past 4 seasons since Washington has left, Burns had 7.5 sacks with Washington. Since then, he was able to learn. He was able to take those proper steps, and I think Washington helped set the foundation for his career, and he's been very, very consistent since then. Wasn't as good this year as he was last year, but let's be honest, Carolina as a whole was a bit of a mess. I love Brian Burns, and we know for a fact that Ryan Poles likes him. He was a name that got reported as a potential piece in the trade for the number 1 pick last year. Obviously, the Bears got DJ Moore instead, which that was a very good move. But there's been other reports of him being interested in trading for Burns as well. I don't think he would trade for him if he got franchise tag, but if somehow he slips through the cracks, I would absolutely sign him to a mega deal. How about Josh Allen, not the Bills quarterback, the Jags pass rusher, who did have the best year of his career as he broke out with Jacksonville here in 2023. You look at the sacks and the pressures in particular, 17.5 there, 90 pressures for Josh Allen. He was very, very good and very, very productive. And like Brian Burns, prime franchise tag candidate. Like, if they can't get long-term deals done with their current teams, I would expect those teams, Jacksonville and Carolina, to place the franchise tag, because these are too valuable of assets to just lose them in free agency. However, if they slip through the cracks, if they decide not to, I would absolutely outbid another team for them, even if you have to overpay. These are young, talented edge rushers that you could pair with Montez Sweat and really get after quarterbacks for the foreseeable future. Now, pick an edge. Who would you rather have? They're both very good. Type BB for Brian Burns or JA for Josh Allen. I don't have a strong preference. I'd be cool with either of these guys. I mean, Washington's worked with Burns, so maybe there's a slight edge there, but I think both are very good. BB for Burns or JA for Josh Allen. Excuse me. Danielle Hunter. This is a guy we've talked about a few times now, and I think this is the guy. First of all, I mean, he was terrific this year. I know he's had some injuries in the past, had the neck issue the 1 year, which caused him to miss the season. People were concerned about his future. Well, he's been back and healthy, and he's been playing awesome. Almost 17 sacks, 80 pressures himself. And I think this is the guy because he cannot be franchise tagged. Part of his restructuring of his contract last year, it was written into his contract that Minnesota can't franchise tag him. So if they don't re-sign him before free agency begins, he's free to sign wherever. Now, he might decide to go back, but the Vikings may, just based on where they're at, let him go because they got some other things to figure out. They got to figure out quarterback. They got to pay Justin Jefferson soon. So I think this is the guy you go get, man. Like, sure, if Josh Allen or Brian Burns is available, take the swing. No doubt about it. But I think Danielle Hunter is gettable. He cannot be franchise tagged. He's only 30 years old. I think you can give him a 3 or 4 year deal and have it be worth it. I'm absolutely in on Danielle Hunter. Now, here are some other names, some lesser names. Bryce Huff, really good pass rusher, okay against the run. Chase Young, did you guys see that clip from the NFC Championship game where he's just like walking around? It's almost like he started jogging one way and then your Madden controller died, and so he was just stuck jogging. That's what it looked like. I was like, dude, what kind of effort was that? When he tries, he's a pretty decent player, but the effort's questionable there. Jonathan Greenard had a breakout season for Houston. He's an interesting one. Jadeveon Clowney was really good for Baltimore, man. I mean, if you can get him on an affordable 1 year deal, I'm interested. Same with Za'Darius Smith in Cleveland. Josh Uche, what do the Patriots do there? He's a name to follow. Leonard Floyd, who, by the way, played under Eric Washington in Buffalo this year. I think a potential reunion in Chicago could be a possibility. Michael Danna in KC, Ryan Poles was in that front office when they drafted him. He had a career year. AJ Epenesa, also in Buffalo with Washington. You got Andrew Van Ginkel as well. So some pretty good edge rushers in this free agency period. If you don't want to go for the A-plus home run, some B and C line players here as well. Chris Jones, as we go to the other position on the defensive line, defensive tackle, 3-tech in particular here. I mean, you don't even have to say that much about Chris Jones. I mean, he's just a dominant player. I mean, there's really no other way you need to even put it. I mean, he's so dominant. When the Chiefs lost in Week 1 to the Lions, they're like, all right, man, we'll figure it out. Just come back. They got that done for this year, but now he's able to hit the free agent market again. Now, the Chiefs have an interesting decision. What do they do with Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed? It's going to be tough to keep them both. Now, you could extend one, tag the other. That's possible, but the Chiefs have some cap space, but not a crazy amount. Could they do it? Yes. They could move contracts around and make it work. Will Brett Veach do it? The Chiefs GM do it? That's a different question. I could see them picking one and letting the other go. And if Chris Jones is the guy let go, I know he's 30. I know he's going to cost a shit ton. I'd be willing to do it because he's that dominant of a presence. Now, we got some FGB. Get it spammed in the comments. T-shirts available at chatsports.com/FGB. Sizes go up to XXL. Pick one up today. Link is in the comments and in the description. chatsports.com/FGB. Justin Madubuike for Baltimore, who had an awesome year. He was very good as well. I think he's going to get priced out for Baltimore. I feel like the Ravens really missed their chance this year because they had a lot of good young players mixed with veterans, and now a guy like Madubuike is going to be hard to keep because he had this career year, 13 sacks. He's one of the best interior rushers in the NFL this season. I've seen PFF project him at $23 million per year. That's a massive contract for a guy who before this year is kind of just a solid player, not great. So for those reasons, I'm not sure Baltimore can pay him. And look, once you pay the quarterback big money like the Ravens did, which you have to do when you have that guy, but it's hard to keep players like this. It's why you have to keep drafting well, etc. So, you know, if you want to tie it into the quarterback discussion, like if you're going to keep Fields and pay him in a couple of years, take that for what it's worth because it's harder to have a stellar roster around him. Christian Wilkins for the Miami Dolphins. He's another player as well. This feels like a tag situation. I think Miami probably tags him because he was kind of just okay. Then this year he has this breakout year with 9 sacks and a lot of pressures. I feel like the Dolphins are going to tag him and make him prove it again, which is probably the right move. But he was very good for Miami in the middle of that defense. That defense did have some issues under Vic Fangio, who's now in Philadelphia, but he was not one of them. He was, top 2 or 3 player on that unit. So Again, if he's available, I'm interested. I think he gets tagged, but if not, I would certainly take a swing there. So pick a defensive tackle. If you could have any of these guys, who would you pick? Type CJ for Chris Jones, JM for Justin Madubuike, or CW for Christian Wilkins. I would probably just order it like that. Jones, Madubuike, Wilkins. I'd be fine with any of them. Some other defensive tackles that are out there. Leonard Williams. I feel like some team's going to overpay there. DJ Reader, when he's healthy, he's awesome, but he does get hurt a lot. Grover Stewart could be like a bargain bin type of guy. Matt Eberflus coached him in Indianapolis. He's not going to cost as much. Might be in like the $5 to $7 million per year range, so keep an eye on that name. Fletcher Cox, sounds like Philly and him might be parting ways. Maybe you want to bring in a vet presence on a one-year deal. Daquan Jones, Buffalo, again, Eric Washington connection. He could be a guy that comes in and rotates, so a few names to keep in mind there. Excuse me. All right, let's go to safety. Xavier McKenna with the New York Giants. Really good year, man. I mean, tackling machine, had 3 interceptions as well. I don't think the Giants are going to pay him, to be honest. I think they're going to let him go. So if he's out there, he could be a potential Eddie Jackson replacement depending on the cost. Obviously, it depends on what they do with Bojack, but I like Xavier McKenna. He can play both safety spots. If you lose Bojack, you need a free. He's capable of doing that, so certainly wouldn't mind that. If you want to go with someone who's a little bit cheaper but also a little younger, Gino Stone, who really broke out this year. The Ravens ran a lot of 3 safety schemes, and he kind of became that deep, just center fielder guy for them, and he was a ball hawk machine. I mean, 7 picks and 9 breakups. His coverage grade through PFF was almost 85, which is one of the highest in the NFL. I think he's capable of being this team's free safety next to Jaquan Brisker, and I don't think he'll cost a lot. PFF says 2 years, $13 million. That's kind of what you're looking at. So you get a guy like this for $7 million or less per year. He can be your starting free. Hey, man, I love the coverage skills. Get more takeaways. Should the Bears cut Eddie Jackson? C for cut, K for keep. Make the call. Unless he takes a major pay cut, I think you got to release him. Julian Blackmon with the Indianapolis Colts. You got a Flus connection here. Spent his first 2 seasons under Flus when he was the DC in Indy. Obviously, the last 2 years, Flus hasn't been there, but I like that connection if you're going to bring a guy like this in place. I mentioned that with Grover Stewart as well. Be interested to see if Flus, pushes for any of these guys that he's coached in the past, how much input Eric Washington has in building this roster. So all those things are important. And anything in light, networking is important. So, like, if you know someone, you feel good about their capabilities, you're certainly going to vouch for them in free agency. Now, I did want to mention, these are kind of the top guys at safety, but all 3 have been heavily linked to being franchise tag candidates. Antoine Winfield in Tampa could get tagged, and if he does, that means Mike Evans hits the market potentially, so that's interesting on the offensive side of the ball. Kyle Duggar, do the Patriots keep him? Do they re-sign him? Do they tag him? I feel like they'll tag him if they don't get a deal done. Cameron Curl as well with Washington. He's been pretty damn good. He could get franchise tagged as well, especially since they traded Montez Sweat to the Bears and obviously Chase Young away. Those are going to be 2 prime tag candidates, but with them out of the picture, Cameron Cole could be that guy. So I would put any of those players in the category of if they don't get tagged, I'm interested, but I do expect them to get franchise tagged. And then I'm only going to talk about one corner, and I'm not even going to hit linebacker because the Bears have 3 starting caliber linebackers. They have Noah Sewell as well. But corner, just re-sign Jalen, right? Like, you need to keep him in 2024 and beyond. Worst case, you can franchise tag him. But highest graded corner in the NFL per PFF, gave it just 33.3 passer rating when targeted. Again, if a quarterback spikes the football over and over again, it's 39.6. So it was negative plays when you're throwing at Jalen. So keep him. Tyreek Stevenson is really growing nicely. Kyler Gordon took a nice step this year. You've got Terrell Smith. Your corner room is well positioned for the years to come if you re-sign JJ. All right, who is your top defensive free agent target? Who is it? Let's talk about external. So no Jalen Johnson. Other guys, who is your top defensive free agent target that you want to bring in here? Let me know. I would love Brian Burns, Chris Jones. I don't know if they're going to be available, but if you can get one of those premier defensive linemen, man, to pair with Montez Sweat, that would be absolutely fantastic. All right, guys, thanks to everybody for tuning in to this episode. Hit that subscribe button for more Bears videos. We'll see you soon.